This is a 2005 Hummer H2. And now I mention the model year every time I do a video because there are subtle changes which you may need to check for your model year, and so what I'm telling you only applies to an 05, although may work with other vehicles. Now I'm going to change the stabilizer link on both sides actually. Here is the stabilizer link bar. Now I found the easiest way to get that out without struggling trying to put penetrating oil on and releasing the nuts and everything else was to just take an angle grinder and cut it out. The nut on the underside is so small, the actual depth of the nut is very shallow. Even with a socket on there, it'll just twist off. I'm going to take an angle grinder and cut this off and then fit a new bar. So what you need are two 14mm wrenches to do the job. Only for fitting the new part. The old one will just cut away. As mentioned, these are all of the parts I need. I've got an angle grinder, two 14mm AF wrenches, and my new stabilizer bar, which I'll show you the fitting of a bit later on. So I'm going to cut away now the old stabilizer. So I'm going to make the cut somewhere there, and obviously it's very difficult for me to video this and show you at the same time, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that and come back. There I've sliced through the bar. It didn't help that my grinding disc was a bit worn out, but we've gone through the center core and now just going to give it a bit of a tap and remove the parts. I have cut through the parts. You can see they're all loose and should come apart quite easily. I'm just going to work at that for a second. Everything's a bit warm. May need a little screwdriver to poke the centre down. Just go and get one. If this goes the same as the other side, the centre bar should just tap out. There we go, just dropped out on the floor. There's the other half. So this part is free to come out, and there we go. Now the other part should come off. It's a bit warm, so it's coming off. Comes out, and the top part. So I'll just show the top part. Just come out. Oh, that's free. So now the whole thing has been removed, and we're completely free. So we're just going to get a rag and clean up the surfaces, and then come back. I've got a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on a cloth, and I'm going to use that to wipe the surfaces. I've cleaned the areas as best I can. Just helps make the assembly a bit more solid, not too much to wear the rubber away. And now I'm going to fit the new stabilizer link. Here is the link. I'll put the part number for this as a pop-up on the video. Now the nuts on these are actually like nylock nuts, but then there's no nylon on them. They're just it's like a defective nut. It won't undo, but you can't finger tighten it. So I'm just going to align these parts in place, and we'll see how we get on. So we'll start by putting the top link in, which goes in that way, like so. Now I believe these parts, the recessed parts, go to the chassis. So this part goes on next. So hard doing videos and manipulating. Need a cameraman. That goes on there. Then we've got one of these washers. And this particular part has got shape washers to match the profile of the rubbers. Distance bar on. So once you've got the lower rubber on there, you should be able to finagle it in, and just need a little bit of persuasion just to get it into place. Right, I've now pressed it into place. It didn't take an awful lot of effort. No extra jacks or prizing or anything needed. It went in quite easily. Now on the bottom, we've got the bottom rubber to go on, which you can't see. One thing I've noticed that there's very little excess thread on the bar, and when you first put it together you may not have room to get this on and the nut. So what I do is just put the nut on the bottom without the washer and just tighten it up and get everything into place, and then pull the bar through. That worked. I'll try and get a picture underneath if I can. You can see I've managed to get the washer on and I've got the nut started, so now we can go ahead and tighten up the stabilizer link. Sorry for the rough videos, but it's the best I can do with one hand. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up. Right, I've tightened up the link. Now, no doubt there's going to be a million people saying, oh, the torque settings for that are, but I'm going to do a more practical approach. I've tightened it up to the point where I feel that it's actually tight enough, and then I'm going to drive it, and then I'm going to come back and check to make sure they're still tight, because as the geometry of the car moves, things may work loose, so I'm going to give it a chance to settle in, then I'm going to come back to it. As a case in point, this stabilizer link I fitted yesterday, it's quite loose having been driven around, so I really do think you need to give it a drive and then come back to them later. So I'm going to retighten this one, take it a drive around, and then come back and check both of them again. Well, that was worth doing because they had become quite loose, and they feel like they're tight. I'm just going to double check the other side yet again. Both sides are now probably at optimum tightness. So that's job done. Now, one word about these stabilizer links. They're not like the original ones. The original ones were a little bit more sophisticated. I think they're AC Delco. But the problem with them is that the top has got a really weird 16-sided nut, quite a large one, and the underside nut is very shallow. It makes it difficult to remove. I would imagine these would be an absolute doddle to get off. I mean, they're really positively engaged with the wrenches, so they're going to come off. They seem to be as good quality, I would say, in build, and it's not a biggie. It isn't a really big job. I think we're okay now. Job done.